You open your pull request the next morning and there are 52 comments. You scroll through them. Half are about variable naming. You close the laptop. Code review is one of the best tools we have. Genuinely. It catches bugs, spreads knowledge, keeps the code base coherent. In theory. In practice, a lot of teams have turned the pull request into something nobody wants to go near. Engineers dread submitting. Reviewers treat it like a performance. And the feedback loop that should make software better ends up making people quiet and resentful instead. I have been building software for over a decade. I have been the junior engineer, getting buried under nitpicks. I have been the tech lead trying to figure out why my team stopped commenting on each other's PRs. I have managed code bases with real standards and ones with no standards, and both can produce the same toxic review culture if the underlying dynamics are wrong. So today, we are going through 6 reasons your code reviews keep turning into fights. Not the surface stuff, the actual reasons. Let's start with the most uncomfortable one, because everything else sits on top of it. The review is a power move, not a feedback loop. In a lot of teams, code review is not really about the code. It is about who has authority over the code base. And when that is the underlying dynamic, the review becomes a place where senior engineers perform their seniority. Every comment is a signal. Look how much I know. Look how much you missed. Look who has final say. You see it in the tone. Comments that are technically correct, but written with this edge to them. This is not how we do things here. No link to documentation. No explanation of why. Just the assertion, wrapped in quiet condescension. And when the PR author pushes back, suddenly it is personal. Because it was personal from the start. The fix is to separate authority from feedback. Reviewers approve or block based on defined criteria. Not vibes, not taste, not, I would have done this differently. If your review criteria live in one person's head, you do not have a review process. You have a gatekeeper. Here is another one that causes more damage than people realize, because it looks like a standards problem, but it is actually a communication problem. Nobody agreed on what good actually means. You have a linter. Maybe you have a style guide that someone wrote 3 years ago and nobody has read since. But good code in your team is still a vibe. And vibes are not transferable. So what happens is that every PR becomes a negotiation about taste. One reviewer wants smaller functions. Another reviewer wants fewer abstractions. The author is trying to satisfy both and pleasing neither. And the comments accumulate not because the code is bad, but because the team never sat down and actually defined what good enough to merge looks like. Prettier and ESLint handle the formatting wars. That part is solved. But architectural preferences, naming conventions, error handling patterns, test coverage expectations, those need explicit decisions, written down, agreed on by the team, not enforced by whoever reviewed last. If your standard exists only when someone is reviewing, it is not a standard. It is an opinion with a blocking vote. Number 3, and this one is subtle because individually, every comment seems reasonable. The nitpick, death by 1,000 cuts. You submit a PR that does something real, closes a bug, ships a feature, migrates a table. The logic is sound. The tests pass. And then the review comes back with 43 comments about things that do not affect correctness, performance, or readability in any meaningful way. The variable is called data instead of response data. There is a blank line where there should not be. The comment says fetches user, and the reviewer thinks it should say retrieves user. Each one is small. Collectively, they bury the actual feedback. This pattern does 2 things. It trains engineers to write defensive, over-explained code because they are trying to preempt the nits. And it trains reviewers to feel productive without doing the hard work of reviewing the actual logic. If you are leaving nit-picks, label them. Literally, write nit at the start of the comment. GitHub does not do this for you. Make it explicit that this is optional and non-blocking. Separate the things that matter from the things you noticed. Your author should be able to tell the difference at a glance. Moving on. And this one sits right at the edge of code review and basic human communication. Feedback is about the person, not the code. There is a version of code review where all the comments are technically about the code, but emotionally, they are about the author. You can feel it in the phrasing. Why would you do this? This makes no sense. This is going to cause problems. Subject, unclear. Could be the code. Reads like the person. Engineers are often not trained in giving feedback. We are trained in being right, and being right and communicating well are completely different skills. So the feedback comes out sharp or vague, or both at the same time. The standard fix is the one you have heard before. Comment on the code, not the coder. This approach could cause issues when X instead of you should have thought about X. But that only works if reviewers actually believe there is a difference. Some do not. Some think being blunt is the same as being direct. It is not. Blunt without context is just noise with confidence. This next one is one that nobody talks about because it implicates everyone, including the author. The PR is too big and nobody will say it. A 1,200-line pull request lands in the review queue. The reviewer opens it, feels the weight of it, and does one of two things. They approve it with minimal comments because actually, reviewing it properly would take 3 hours and they have their own work. Or they find the first 10 things that look off and comment on those, ignoring the other 20 because they simply did not get that far. Neither of those is a code review. One is a rubber stamp. The other is a partial audit that gives the author false confidence. Big PRs are a systemic failure before the reviewer even opens them. They happen because the team has not built the habit of small, focused commits. They happen because the ticketing in Jira does not break work down small enough. They happen because the author wanted to finish the whole feature before showing anyone. Review quality degrades sharply after about 400 lines. That is not opinion. There is research on it. If your PRs are regularly exceeding that, the problem is upstream of the review. Fix the slice. Fix the ticket. Fix the habit. And finally, the last one, and honestly, the one that wraps all the others together. There is no culture of psychological safety in the review. When engineers do not feel safe in the review process, everything gets worse across the board. Authors stop asking for early feedback because they do not want to expose half-finished thinking to a reviewer who will criticize it. Reviewers stop leaving genuine questions because they do not want to look like they missed something. Junior developers stop commenting on senior PRs entirely because the one time they did, they got a terse response and felt embarrassed. And so, the code review becomes a performance on both sides. The author presents finished, polished work. The reviewer evaluates it at arm's length. Nobody is actually collaborating. Nobody is learning from each other. The whole point of the thing collapses. Building safety in code review is not soft. It is structural. It means senior engineers modeling how to receive feedback without defensiveness. It means tech leads reviewing junior code in a way that opens a conversation rather than closes one. It means, I do not understand this. Can you walk me through it? Being a completely normal comment to leave. When that is the norm, the review stops being a fight and starts being what it was supposed to be. A conversation about the work. Code review fights are never really about the code. They are about unspoken power dynamics, undefined standards, feedback skills nobody taught us, and a culture where being critical got confused with being rigorous. The teams I have seen do this well have one thing in common. They treat the review process as a first-class thing, not an afterthought that happens after the real work. They have written criteria for what blocks emerge. They have norms around how feedback gets delivered. And the senior engineers model the behavior they want to see. That is it. No special tool fixes this. No new GitHub feature. The process is as healthy as the team running it. Build the team first. The reviews sort themselves out. If you have lived through a code review that left a mark, drop it in the comments. I want to know what actually happened. And if this one hit home, you know what to do.